Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Mornings with the Focus. Was Tarpe Jr. and happy to be here this morning to talk about what happened in sports this weekend. I would start last night, as always. You guys know playoffs are going on in the association, so that's where we're going to start. Um, get this up real quick for you guys. This is where we're going to start. Phoenix and Dallas. The Mavericks head into last weekend trailing the Suns 2-0 in their series, in the round two series. After taking game four last night, the Cavs are back in the series. The Mavs, back in the series with a 111 and 101 win. Series is now 2-2 as it shifts back to Phoenix for game five. Chris Paul had one of his roughest playoff outings in his career. Luka led the Mavs with 26, 7 rebounds, and 11 assists. But this was really about the others for Dallas. Dorian Finney-Smith was outstanding. He shot 8 of 13 from the floor, 8 of 12 from deep for 24 points. The bench gave them 36 points total as Davis Bertans and Spencer Dinwiddie added to, Maxi Kleber, who's been pretty steady for Dallas in that regard. The Mavs hit 23s in this game. As for Phoenix, they got 35 from Book, 15 from Jay Crowder, 14 from DeAndre Ayton. Biggest thing was not having Chris Paul. They turned the ball over far too much, things that will happen when Chris Paul isn't playing, and it cost them. Not having Paul on the floor, as I mentioned, certainly hurt. He played just 23 minutes because of foul trouble. And he picked up some really, really silly fouls. But I know some folks were complaining, but the way he kind of goes about his business at times too, with he typically has great success in drawing fouls. At times it felt like he kind of got Chris Paul by Luka at times, where he was able to get the ref, bait him into a few calls, and they were huge calls. I know he picked up number 4 at the end of the first half. He picked up 2 fouls, matter of fact, 2 silly fouls going after offensive rebounds. Going after rebounds, period. The first one was an offensive rebound. The second one was he fouled Jalen Brunson, and that's how he ended up fouling out later in the second half. However you want to cut it, the Suns got just 23 minutes from Chris Paul. Not nearly enough. So this series has took a drastic shift, but thus far, each team has held serve at home. All-important Game 5 is on the horizon. Look forward to seeing, if the trend of the home team winning continues, or is someone going to finally win a game on the road in this series. Moving on to, here we go, to the second game that was played last night. Just like the first game, Sixers played the first 2 games on the road. They were down. They were trailing Miami 2-0. They also played games 1 and 2 without Joel Embiid. He returned for games 3 and 4. Obviously, you would expect that to be for him to make a bit of a difference. Made a huge difference in game 3. In game 4, he was solid, but it's his presence just being on the floor changed this thing drastically, because we know after Embiid, the selections that the Sixers have at the 5 aren't exactly great quality at the moment. But we had a James Harden sighting last night. Harden scored 31 points. He had 7 rebounds and 9 assists in the 116-108 Game 4 win for the Sixers. Three-point shooting was big in this one as well. We saw the Sixers shoot 48% from deep. Miami shot just 20%. James hit 6 triples. Danny Green knocked down 3 as well. Embiid finished with 24 and 11. Miami, Jimmy Butler went for 40. Bam added 21. They did see the return of Kyle Lowry, but he shot just 3 for 10 from the floor. Tyler Hero shot just 4 for 12 from the floor. They definitely didn't get the production they need from their others, where Dallas most certainly did. And for Philly, way to get back into the series. You went back home down 2. As the series shifts back to Miami, it's 2-2. You got your MVP candidate. You got your best player back in the series. We'll see how things go. Keep in mind, again, Lowry did play his first game in the series. And he played 30 minutes last night, didn't shoot well, but just having him back, I'm sure will go a long way for Miami. But similar to the first series we mentioned, game fives are about to be huge. Literally about to be huge. Tonight we have game fours. We have two game fours, and that's in the Milwaukee Boston and then Golden State Memphis series. Over the weekend, those teams did play their game threes. The Bucks and Warriors took care of business. They hold 2-1 leads heading into tonight's game fours. Both of those teams, at home at the moment. So it should be pretty interesting. They both split on the road, and we'll see how things go in game four. If they both take care of business again tonight, the series will shift back to, as it goes to game five. You might have two folks up 3-1 tonight, or the other side of this is we'll have you look around the league and all four playoff series will be tied at 2. But we'll see you guys tomorrow morning in regards to that. The other bit of NBA news we had, this came out this morning. This news broke, while I was prepping this morning. Nikola Jokic has won back-to-back MVPs. The news was broken by Adrian Wojnarowski and Shams this morning. Jokic joins Kareem, Russell, Wilt, and Moses Malone as centers in history to win multiple MVPs. He averaged 27 points, 14 rebounds, 8 assists this season, finished top 10 in several categories, those categories being points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game, and field goal percentage. See, a lot of people already going nuts this morning. A lot of folks felt like Joel Embiid should have won this award. And they're citing his most recent performance, him returning to this playoff series. And that's great. I'm happy that he's back. I know Philly's happy that he's back. This is a regular season award. I wish they kind of continued this trend back in the day where soon as the regular season was over, like before games even got played in the postseason, before the first playoff game for the would-be MVP winner, it was announced. Like, just announce it early before postseason games are even played, and it kind of curbs some of this nonsense where it's, oh, so-and-so didn't deserve it because of this, because of what's happening in the postseason. It's a regular season award. See a lot of folks like, well, Embiid was missing X, Y, and Z. We've seen this in the past. Anytime you get, perceived 2 top 10, 2 top 15, 2 top 20 players together, sometimes it's a struggle for them to win MVP. That said, both of these centers had amazing seasons, along with Giannis as well. But I think it was well deserved, and people got to let it go just a little bit. Shout out to Nikola for winning back-to-back MVPs. And I think he kind of really wanted, he was consistent. He was there all year long, consistently all year long. Joel's been amazing. Again, but sometimes with him, stuff fluctuates at times. But it was well deserved. I gotta let it go. And if you want to argue and debate and everything else, start and end with the regular season. What they did in the regular season, like it literally doesn't make sense citing postseason performances as to why someone didn't deserve a regular season award. Like, say it out loud before you start arguing. I promise you, it doesn't make any sense. It's a regular season award. But again, shout out to Jokic. Big year from him. I expect the Nuggets to look quite different next year. I think some furniture is going to be moving. Or Mike Malone at the end of the year after they lost in the first round to the Warriors. Talk about Denver needs to capitalize on having a player this special. But again, what I'm happy about overall is look at centers thriving when, some of y'all said centers wouldn't matter anymore because it's a different era and, bigs aren't that important. It's positionless. Centers matter. Great centers are always going to be a factor in this game. I don't care what's going on, what changes, what have you. And, we had three of the best bigs in this league up for this award. And Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis, And we all know the type of damage they do. So, again, y'all got to stop arguing about a whole bunch of nothing. personally. But we are going to get into a little bit of NFL this morning. Um, don't forget, guys, tune in. Feel free to join the conversation via the comment section. Steer the conversation that way as well. We're joined this morning by Justin Walters from Sports Ruckus. All right. We get into this morning. The topic you wanted to get into was second year signal callers. So I got some notes up or whatnot. You want me to start and just you want to start player by player? You want me to go ahead and set the table and just share some stats? Where you want to go?
You want to go player for player? You do that.
Sure. We will start again. There were 8 quarterbacks drafted last year. However, we're only going to discuss the 5 that should be starting this season or played heavily last year. So if there's
6.
3, who's the 6th person you had?
Mills.
I had Mills.
Oh, did I count Mills?
Yeah, I can't count. That's all.
All right.
And it's, the sad part is I was like, who's the 6th? But he was here. So I'm sorry. Had it correct. So we got 6 of the 8. And again, expect all 6 of these guys to be starting this year. But these were also the only 6 of the 8 that got like actual starts and time last year. That said, we'll start with Trevor Lawrence, right? Last year, completion percentage 59.6. He threw for 3,641 yards, 6 yards per pass, 12 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, and quarterback rating is 71.9. That's where we'll start. So go ahead, Justin.
I think with Lawrence, it's going to be a let's say a growing process, but it's not going to happen as fast as as people hope. And I think because the hype got a little was intense the last few years, coming out of college. But I think what they're trying to build around him is more of a more of a college system, where he's able to spread the ball around, and you have a guy like Kirk who can run underneath routes and get the ball out of his hand quick, and the Clemson offense was really simple. It was a really simple offense, so trying to go into these pro concepts was more of an adjustment than people wanted to credit it, and being big and having a strong arm, but there was some different like technical issues with his release and things like that with Lawrence that we kind of overlooked because the hype got out of control. But he's a talented guy, can throw decently athletic, but it's more of a long stride athletic, not a maneuver the pocket type athletic. So I think he's going to be a good quarterback. It's just going to take a little more time, and the weapons around him are they paid some weapons. There's other teams that have kind of went another route and probably spent less money, but gave their guys better weapons. The offensive line is okay, it's solid, and they brought back Cam Robinson and they got Jawan Taylor on the other side where people might have thought they should have went Evan Neal, but it's just a solid offense. Like there's no real standouts. The standout, I mean, their best player the last few years was James Robinson. So getting that run game going, but Lawrence is more of a long-legged guy who likes to be in the shotgun, and lived off the back shoulders and the crosser. So, I don't really see the receiver on that roster who's going to be that back shoulder, went over the top guy that he's used to. So I think that's just going to be his biggest adjustment. And then going from Urban Meyer to a actual pro coach can only help. I think that with that, and everyone seemed like, even him, he seems like a pretty mild-mannered guy where even he didn't like Urban Meyer. So I think just the team was, they're looking to him. So it's not like he's going to have pressure where, they're looking for him to fail. It is Jacksonville, so the expectations aren't super high. But again, I think people want to see that next step from him, whatever that is, to, a good amount of more touchdowns, interceptions by a decent amount, like 3-1 type thing. And, just seeing more from him, you're hoping to win 6 games, 6 to 8 games, 17 games played, so it's possible. Hoping to start winning between 6 and 8 games, and just really see see the arrow pointing up. They added to the defense, and just seeing what the next move is. I think that's the big thing for them is just you want to see more improvement. See improvement, and again, he's a big, strong, talented, big, strong guy with a good arm. So I think you just want to see more, and I think the mental part of the game, you want to see that from him.
Yeah, I think Doug Peterson is going to be huge for him. We saw what Doug did for, Carson. When Carson came in as a rookie, and I think Trevor probably has a little bit more top end talent to work with. than Carson does without some of the some of the issues. But yeah, it's an uphill battle, and that's another one of the things, like you said, just the hype kind of got away from itself, right? Um, Talented prospect. Um, I didn't have an issue with him going one, but the way they were talking about him was just a little bit outlandish. Like going into these drafts, y'all just need to leave Andrew Luck's name out your mouths. Just leave it alone. And that's not a knock on Trevor or whoever, but when you if you're gonna bring up Luck, right? He like that's the epitome of pro ready. Like literally, that's the textbook definition of it. So if it's anything less than that, leave it be. There's nothing wrong with that. Like we know, depending on where you go to school, it's gonna be hard for you to be pro ready. All right, like just keep it a buck. But again, that comes to holding some of these schools and these programs to hold them accountable, because a lot of people look the other way depending on who the school is, relationships to the school, and you just we've had this like myth for a while that Clemson's offense was actually good for these quarterbacks, and it really hasn't been the case. It's looking like Deshaun was the outlier. That's what it's looking like. And again, ain't no one's trying to say it's a wrap for Trevor this early. Just saying, people assume he's going to hit the ground running, change the franchise, yada 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 from day one, and that's a lot to ask. He's already gonna have he has enough pressure as is, and I don't think it was I think it was a coin flip for who could have went one in that class. And if it was framed as that, the whole time I think I wouldn't have had as big an issue with it. But I think that's what we're gonna get to some of these other numbers, and we're gonna come back to that, and then y'all can make assumptions or listen to information and take it in how you want to take it. But again, that's a guy who's supposed to be, again, heads and shoulders above the rest. Move on to quarterback two in this discussion. Zach Wilson, 55.6 completion percentage, 2,334 yards. His average yards per pass, 6.1, 9 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, rating of 69.7.
Okay. Zach Wilson he's kind of been put in that position of, sadly, where he's become the whipping boy of this class. Like, where it's fun to bash Zach Wilson. And again, the hype for him, it got a little crazy also, but I'm not burying the kid. I think it just, this is a game we play with Twitter and scouts, is because the ascension was so high. We had to back. You put him up there too high. Now you have to bring him all the way down. And the truth is usually somewhere in between, and maybe he shouldn't have went before Fields or before some of these other guys, but he's a talented guy, and I think his game is a lot. It's trying to manage the risk reward and trying to make him safe at the same time. Like if you're trying to make him into this safe quarterback, you're gonna lose what made him the second pick overall. If that makes any sense, he's gonna make some throws you don't want to, you shouldn't make, but that's why you took him, And we watch some of these guys run around in college, and we project that as NFL, and it's not. Like everybody's 4'6", 4'7". I mean, we've seen what Jordan Davis ran. You know what I mean? You see what the first pick overall Walker ran. Like that's who's chasing you. So you really need to be able to stay in that pocket, unless you're if you're a different kind of athlete, whether it's speed, elusiveness, whatever the case may be. Like we see a lot of these guys run around in college, and we start to think it's just, you're just gonna run. Like even Burrow moves a lot, but Burrow's a different kind of athlete, and Burrow has some anticipation, different things that we don't really give him credit for, And I think with a guy like Wilson, he can make the throws. I mean, I watched last year; he bounced a lot of throws, easy throws, but he can make the spectacular throws. So I think it's just more development. And again, they had a lot of injuries also with the weapons around them. So they added some weapons. Jets did a really good job in everything. Offensive line, running game, receivers, even defense, for what that says. But he's a talented guy who can make the throws. But I think it's just not putting so much on his plate and trying him figuring out how to manage when to take the shot and when to just check it down and throw it away. I think that's his biggest thing. He's still learning. I think we got so carried away with that big year at BYU that no one realized, like, hey, where was he before this? You know, and I think there's steps to be made. You know, he with resetting his feet and things like that. I mean, I watched him, you know, throw checkdowns into the ground or missed throws you have to make, and he wasn't making them. You know, and I think that's where he's going to have to tighten his game up. I actually read something that said he put on some weight, which would help because he definitely looked like a little kid out there. You know, and then just figuring out when to use that mobility, when to stay in that much stand. You know, you want to be able to stay in that pocket. You know, and in the offense they're in, he has the ability to make that work because guys with less talent than him have had success in that offense. So it's just kind of like, you know, we kind of make these guys. We want everyone to be 1A. That Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, he can make some of those throws, but that's not his. It can't be everything. You know, I think it's just working. He's gonna keep getting better as a pro. Okay, take what's there. Take the deep shot when it's open. You know, and the scheme will help him, and then his ability to kind of transcend the scheme, he has to mix the two. And I think that's where a lot of guys in that system struggle because most of them can't. So it's not even an issue. So if he can mix and match when to take the shot, he can really have a really good career.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think most of it's just getting comfortable. First, he has to get comfortable with his game on this level. Period. Where even if we're gonna get to talk about somebody else in that system a little bit, like even if you're more of you're reading from the top down. Like if that's who you are, then stay in that. There's nothing wrong with that, but stay in that. That said, if you're reading from the top down and it's not there, it got to get out. It got to get out. And I think some of that just coming with in that system, going to be under center. I think that was a huge part of it too. That some people left out. When he landed there, like that was going to be an adjustment, especially play action in that system. I like what they've done as he continues to get comfortable in it. He should be okay because we've seen far less talented people in that system, as you said, go places they have no business going because of that system or put up numbers. They put up numbers that kind of cloud what they really are in said system. And, Zach is more talented than several of those guys. You should be able to figure it out. And I like the weapons they went to go get him. Should make it a little bit easier too. But I just think some of it's learning that system stuff. And then I think most of it, a lot of people like it usually takes year 2 in that system before you get comfortable. So, you throw all that on to being a rookie in New York. And then, like you said, I thought it was a great point. We don't know how far he really had to go, from the game mental-wise coming from BYU, because a lot of people just threw it out the window and just talked about what he was doing physically, even though all the physical stuff did not translate because, whoever you playing out in that conference out there, they're not here. They're the guys that are here are a little bit different. You get outside the pocket and the objects, they're not even in the rearview mirror. They're just there. Like, you're being hunted. But yeah, again, this is why it's going to be fun watching these guys going to year 2. But again, some of the hype was just a little bit outlandish. Going on to the next one, we got Trey Lance, 57.7 completion percentage, 603 yards, yards per pass, 8.5, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, rating of 97.3. Go ahead, Justin.
Trey Lance is is a weird one for most people because of coming so young. So the assumption was just that he's the one that doesn't know what he's doing, or that he's the one that's raw. And again, if you watch, I actually watched him yesterday to kind of get a better feel for him. And you see, like, he can make the throws. He makes a lot. He's making the quarterback decisions, making reads, going, it's just, you want to see more consistency. And again, with that situation, he wasn't the guy last year. So it was kind of like, okay, Jimmy Garoppolo's playing, okay, you're starting today, or hey, take these reps. So I think when a system that's based more around him, and again, I'm not saying it's going to be a running offense, because out of all these guys, he was the one that was taking snaps under center in college. He was the one that had a fullback, had a tight end, had, an actual offense as opposed to the spread, run around stuff. And, I think that's what gets overlooked because he was 19 years old starting. So I think, or was a redshirt sophomore, whatever the case may be, like, it gets looked at like he doesn't know what he's doing. He really, if you watch, he makes some really nice throws, some reads, and he knows how to work the field. So I think he'll he has a chance to really break out and surprise people, with that system. And again, he's of all the guys, he has the best coach, the best play caller, and yeah, he can make all the throws. He's athletic, but again, I just don't think. I think they'll be able to use his athleticism as a plus, but I don't think that's going to be the offense. And then they have the weapons where, he can get the ball to a tight end, to a fullback, to multiple receivers who are playmakers after the catch, but he can stretch parts of the field that the 49ers didn't dream of touching last year. Even in his little bit of time, I'm pretty sure he had most of the biggest plays, as a passer for that offense. Maybe a few where Debo made a play where someone fell or something with Jimmy, but when he was in there, that offense touched parts of the field that they hadn't touched in 3 or 4 years. So I think it's just going to allow that creativity of of the coaching staff to just go to another level. And again, he has all the tools. He has all the ability. He can run, he can throw. And it's just growth that regular growth that any quarterback has. And the first year of just being the guy, he's surrounded by players who have won games, been to the Super Bowl. So it's really just him getting in there, getting comfortable, and just playing up to his ability.
Yeah, like what you said, I think is everyone got so quick to throw the raw label on it. I thought he was one of the more pro ready guys. And sitting there watching him last year, he was. Also, same thing we talk about with Zach and this offense. It takes times that takes quarterbacks usually 2 years or whatever have you. But again, I would just simply go from it was the same offense for, James, and this guy comes in and 8.5 yards is what he was looking, 8.5 yards to completion. Totally different. Other dudes living at 5 or 6, and some of those are, usually behind the line of scrimmage type stuff. Debo had 6 receiving touchdowns last year. This kid played, 2 starts and I think a half a game somewhere. He was responsible for half of Debo's 6 receiving touchdowns last year. And all of them were, only one of the 3 that he threw was behind the line of scrimmage. The other 2 it was air yards, man. And again, like Justin says, I think here it's just reps. I don't think it's anything else but reps. The part that he's raw in is experience. The other stuff he's kind of beyond his years in. He has experience at the other stuff. The calm protections, the full field progressions, all that stuff, he's done. It's literally he's raw in terms of experience. He doesn't have the snaps the others had, the number of snaps the others had coming into it. That's literally the difference. And like you said, the ability to run and all that other stuff. He's one of the better ones from the pocket in his class and should be able to prove that, as he gets more consistent reps. And some of the times he got in last year, like, they didn't even know how to use him fully. And, that was a part of it too. But, yeah, man, that's the biggest thing for me is, I think a couple of the other guys had a couple like 115 point something ratings last year. He had 2 out of the 3 times that he played. So again, small sample size, but it was productive. And like the other guys, we're talking about with Zach. So he struggled. His completion percentage is bad because of some easy throws he just missed. His easy throws. But again, some of the downfield stuff like Zach, where the difference is Zach's going to be one of them dudes that pushes that thing downfield too, coming out of play action. I think Trey's just a little bit more comfortable in that regard with turning your back to the defense and being comfortable with the pitcher changing and not affecting him that much. Yeah, should be fine. On to Justin Fields, because I could talk about Trey all day. 58.9 completion percentage, 1,870 yards, pretty much 7 yards per average, per reception, or completion rather, 7 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 73.2 rating. Go ahead, Justin. I'll let you go ahead.
Fields, I actually watched Fields yesterday also. If you watch Fields has probably maybe the best thrower of all the guys, just being able to put the ball he wants to. But it's just a different. He needs to be quicker with his decisions, and that offense at Ohio State is kind of like it's not, let's say they say layer throws where it's like it's usually a receiver running away from someone. So whether it's an in route or a post or something there's never anything over the top. So it's really kind of like you know who's open early, and you kind of know where you're going with the ball. And I think with his thing, it's going to come down to just, I guess, just getting the ball out, knowing where you're going, and just deciding where to go with it, and taking the check downs. He's one of those guys that he likes to throw the deep routes. And with that line they had last year in the play calling, I think they minimized him. They wanted to make him into this athlete, which he is. He's a ridiculous athlete, but I think he's not the type of. He's more of a pocket guy who wants to sit in the pocket and actually look down the field and play quarterback. And you try to make this guy into how he runs a 4.4. He can do this, he can do that, and he can. But again, he's not a run first guy. He's not looking to run. It's some of the guys who we think are pocket guys look to leave the pocket before he does. His patience is like his gift and his curse. He'll sit in that pocket and he'll wait for someone to break open, and because he can make throws, he can make the 20-yard out routes. He can make the deep he can make any throw on the field, and it's just putting the right people around him and him just being a little quicker to understand where he's at. Ohio State's the best team in the Big Ten, one of the best teams in the country every year. So you might have a little more protection than you do in Chicago, and that's the thing with him is working through your reads quicker and not holding on to one. There's no Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. There's, playing against some Northwestern corner, or whatever. It's, your average to below average receiving core versus top-notch NFL DBs with your bad offensive line. It's a lot of things that worked against him last year. Just more patience and him being quicker to work through his reads and quicker to decide, hey, you know what, I am an athlete. Not so much of them. Last year they called a lot of stuff where they put him on the move and took away from his strengths. He can run, but he's not a runner. And that's the difference. I think they tried to make him into use him. Okay, we're going to use him as like a wildcat guy, and he's not that guy. He's a real quarterback, and I think with him, it's just being just again, like I said, just quicker with your decisions, and not holding on to certain reads. And I think if he tightens that up, he'll be fine, man, because he can play. I think he has a chance to be a star. Again, if you can tighten those things up, and that's going to require the new staff working with him. And again, he didn't do a whole lot under center, so that's going to be an adjustment. And I think like we talked about, they have some West Coast guys, some guys from the Shanahan tree, McVay tree coming in, so they're going to be running a lot more of the outside zone and some of the easier throws that we talked about with Zach Wilson. So he'll have to adjust to that. But again, he's like we talked about, he's one of those guys that he'll look deep first, because he wants to make that throw, and then just getting his footwork tighter. But I think he's a talented guy, man, and he has all the skills. So it's really just tightening up a few things, and the Bears adding that proper talent around him.
Yeah, I'll just sum it up. Just keeping him on schedule. That's it. Just keep him on schedule. Because he just like we talked about Trey before him. Like Trey's biggest thing, just keep. He can play on time. And he can play, out of off schedule too, right? And both of those guys kind of have a similar issue that you mentioned is. They're comfortable knowing that they can hold the ball and make something happen. Sometimes just stay on time, bro. It's okay. Stay on time. I know you saw it, let it go. And that's the part is let it go. Just being having that discernment to know I need to let this go. The slant's open. Let me take the slant right now. I know you're reading from the top down, but the slant's open. Take the slant. Later you could take that. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of that just comes with reps and experience, but for the most part, for Justin, for sure, especially coming after what he went through last year, just keep the kid on time. You keep him on time, I think you're fine. That's the biggest thing with him. Keep him on time, and he's not gonna have an issue putting the ball where he wants to put it when he wants to put it there. On to another guy, Mac Jones, McCorkle, 67.6 completion percentage, 3,801 yards, 7.3 average per completion, 22 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and a rating of 92.5.
Mac doesn't have the skill set that the other four have, or 3.5, but and he just knows the position, he knows what he's doing, and he wins with anticipation, he wins with his brain, his pre-snap, and he's a better athlete than he's given credit for. And again, it's not really. I'm not so much Allen just knows how to maneuver around the field and make the throws, and his teammates seem to love him. But again, I just with them, he's more dependent on scheme. He's more dependent on the talent around him, and I mean, he held his own with not great talent or a combination of not great talent and not a great plan because the best players were their tight ends last year, and he didn't really have a deep threat. And again, certain times they were just overmatched. When teams got up on those receivers and he couldn't make throws and they could get open. And that's a tough situation where some of these other guys could create. Like a Fields or a Lance, they could kind of create and give the receivers a little more time. Whereas Matt's going to make the right decision, but sometimes the game comes down to one-on-ones, and if you don't have the people around to win the one-on-ones, that's where a guy like Matt's going to struggle. He can only take so many checkdowns. It's a lot of times he looked, nothing was there, and he had to go to a checkdown. And for someone who's not the most physically talented, Matt has some gunslinger in him. Matt is going to try to make some throws, which again cost him at times also. But I mean, I wouldn't. I'm not going to ever say anybody's Brady, but I mean, he has that mindset. He's a killer. He's hard on himself. He wants it bad, and he's a fighter. His teammates love him. So I think he'll be solid. He's not that max contract guy, but I mean, as long as that staff, he's perfect for that staff. And I think most of these guys are in the right place. He's in a place where they play a game a certain kind of way. Don't turn it over. Don't do this. Don't do that. And that's the game he plays. And I think they brought in a speed receiver who, regardless, worst case scenario, just stretches the field to open it up for all of them. I mean, they have a team full of underneath receivers. And I think they have 3 or 4 guys who probably all are slot receivers, and they have 2 or 3 tight ends, and they have receiving running backs. So I think it's all, again, like you said earlier, it's staying on schedule. He's that guy, but he will take chances when they're there. And I think you don't want him sitting there in 3rd and 13s. Those other guys can make plays happen on 3rd and 13. Whereas with Matt, sometimes you're punting the down, saying, okay, well, hopefully somebody let's run a screen, let's run a draw. Whereas I think, and that's so it's even more important for him. And he wins with his mind, which he doesn't take the big losses. He's going to throw the ball away or take a check down earlier. So it's 3rd and 3. And I think that's when he'll hit you when you're not ready for it. A 2nd and short, he'll take a deep shot. But he has a high floor, low ceiling guy, but he'll be around for a while. He's going to be a solid quarterback for his whole career.
Yeah, Mac was just as advertised. Like, there was nothing wrong with Mac going into it. I think the issue, at least I know I had when people started talking about Mac, like in the top 3 or top 5, was if you're going to pick that high, you swing for the fence. That's all. There's nothing wrong with Mac. He was clearly one of the most pro-ready in the class, not a shock. Went to the perfect place. He's an on-time guy that has the ability to throw, sprinkle in a little bit off schedule stuff. But for the most part, like Justin said, he wins because that man's just dumb prepared. He's always ready or a step ahead for the most part. And, as he gets more experience, it's going to only, enhance those things that make him good already, which is why, some people are surprised about New England trading up to go get my draft crush at wide receiver. They knew exactly what they needed, and he's comfortable. I know people say, well, Mac doesn't throw the ball deep. Yeah, y'all remember Bama. He was throwing to F1 race cars out wide. And how did he make it work? Like Justin said, anticipation. It's not going to be that hard. Tyquan Thornton might be what everybody wanted the other dude for Bama to be. Exactly. He just might actually physically be it. And if he is, when guys, they're cooking with something. Because that's something where whenever they want to take a shot, the quarterback knows how to throw it deep. Like, he throws a very catchable deep ball. Like, it's not like he struggles with it. I can think of a handful of other people at that position who play the game like in that type of mold who struggle to throw the ball deep. Mac's not one of them. He's just not one of the guys that can see it late deep and still put it out there. It just has to be on time, but he'll lay that thing out there. But yeah, I thought it was a solid year. I don't think anything he did last year surprised me. Like the New England offense wasn't too much different than what he was running. And, so kind of felt like home, I'm sure, outside of the verbiage and things of that nature. So, it'd be year 2 in the system. And the biggest thing for all these guys is stability. And not everyone has it. Right now the only three of them are gonna have like continuity in terms of like the coaching staff, not the folks that drafted them still being in the building. Only three of them really gonna have some continuity. On to the last guy, but not least, Davis Mills quietly had a good year last year, while everybody just didn't acknowledge his existence. For the Texans, like I felt like he balled out. To me, he was one of the better rookie quarterbacks last year. 66.8 completion percentage, 2,664 yards, 6.8 yards per completion, 16 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, and he's working with less than some in terms of weapon department, 88.8 rating. I'll jump out there first on this one, Justin, if you don't mind. This was a guy where I think people just overlooked, where coming out of high school, he was on the same rung as some of these guys coming out of high school. This isn't somebody who snuck up on people or anything of that nature. He had kind of the thing where, you go to a school, you kind of do your job, and it wasn't super flashy. So people act like, it wasn't sexy. He doesn't play the position. It wasn't sexy enough for people where it's like, oh, he's not making the Zach Wilson pro day throws or running someone over, or he doesn't have the 4.3 speed. And yeah, he plays the position well. That's what he does. Plays the position pretty damn well. And again, to put up what he put up, and they probably still need to add to the skill positions around him. I thought he played really well. Houston ended up offensively in a bunch of games they had no business being in with a rookie quarterback. And again, you look at some of other folks' touchdown interception ratios, 16-10 isn't bad. You only had 3 dudes who were positive this last year in that regard. You really did. Yeah, you had half the class was under in TD interception ratio, and this guy played a ton, which is why I'm very encouraged by him, because he played a ton, and it wasn't like it wasn't New England conditions. Like he did what he had to do in spite of. Houston's a dumpster fire. So that's what he was in charge of, and I thought they did a great job not trying to replace him, because you got a chance to just build your roster up. I think he's solid. Like, I don't think they missed. I don't think, like, you might not have I don't know, man. Like, he might have a higher ceiling than Mac. So I mean, and if he does, because physically he's more gifted than Mac. Like, it's a bigger arm, bigger dude, bigger arm, things of that nature. But go ahead, Justin. I'll let you jump in here.
Yeah, he's one of the guys. He provides hope for this year's draft class, because he was a second-round pick. So it's like but again, watching the tape, you could see the tools. You could see sprinkled in different throws that you consider. They say NFL ready, but like we talked about Luck earlier, Stanford runs an offense that it's hard to stand out. Like, you have to watch the tape. Like, it's not a shotgun run left, throw the ball all the way back across the field. Like, they play 2 tight ends, they play 3 tight ends. They have different formations, and they run a certain type of offense where, again, like you talk about, you're doing play action where you're turning your back to the line of scrimmage. You're doing a lot of what you consider NFL concepts, NFL things. And again, the NFL is kind of turning into college, but there's just certain things that you have to do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you could say, well, NFL became a different game, but there isn't certain things, whether it's, turning your back to defense, even if you don't do it, it allows you or teaches you to recognize things quicker. So now he's in the pros and he's getting blitzes from the blind side or something. He's able to recognize what's going on and find the open guy. Maybe he's not having to turn his back, but he's used to it. So he's not things don't surprise him as much. And I think that's the one thing with him was you didn't expect him to not be ready. Expected, okay, he's going to walk in there and it's going to be really hard. He's not going to know what's going on. And, early on, as soon as he got in there, I think it was Tyrod Taylor started. As soon as he came in, he just was comfortable, and you kept seeing him get better. By the end of the season, he was one of the better quarterbacks, period, not just as a rookie. And again, the physical tools are a lot better than you expect. I mean, the physical tools are good. He has really good physical tools. He can make the throws. And just to see the confidence he played with it, I think that was the most surprising thing, was because he had injuries and was up and down in college. So to see him play in the pros and carry himself like that on a team that, a lot of people thought was tanking. Like a team that people questioned, and he had them competitive in a lot of games where they hung in and lost, or I think they won more than they should have. Like it just showed a lot for him. Again, and that's with very little to no, very little talent. I mean, if you look at that roster, that's a really bad roster. Probably the only two people you can think of are Tunsil and Cooks. So I mean, it's just to add some talent around him and to let him grow, and just have some stability around him, and just let him keep going and keep adding to the defense, add some weapons to him, and he has a bright future, and interested to see, it's up to him, because if they win enough this year, he'll be there next year, because that's with the quarterback class next year. If they're a top 5 pick, it'll be tough for them not to, but just to keep seeing him improve. And again, he wasn't. There were a lot of quarterbacks in his class that were worse than him this last year.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is, no disrespect to this class that just happened. If he was in this class, he would have went first. So
Right.
Not to be mean or anything, but yeah, would have been first by a wide margin. And that's not a knock on Kenny Pickett or whatever, but Davis Mills, yes, yeah. Again,
you know what? Hopefully, sorry, hopefully
you're good.
Hopefully this is the start of the team, with the draft of just taking the guys where they belong. There was stuff with Davis Mills that was flashy, that drew your attention from college, but wasn't enough for you to say, hey, this is a top 10 pick. You know what I mean? Because you got to see a lot more of Mac Jones, but you didn't see as much of him. But if you put them next to each other throwing a football, Davis Mills would stand out.
Yeah.
So I think just not pushing the envelope, because now the pressure on Davis Mills was way different. People in Houston weren't saying play Davis Mills. You know what I mean? Davis Mills played because of injury. I'm sure they were looking around to play someone else first, but you allowed him to develop and sit there behind Tyrod, and Tyrod was actually playing pretty well also, but it's a different mindset with all these young guys. So we can say, hey, he's going to sit the whole year, but the second something goes wrong, even somewhat wrong, we're ready to play the next guy. Hey, put the rookie in, but with him being a second-round pick or second-round pick, the pressure is way different, and I think that's what worked in his favor. You're not in camp where everyone wants to see what Davis Mills is going to do. It just allows you to actually surprise people, and again, with this class, one or two or a couple of these guys, maybe, they're all in decent situations. So maybe, sitting on the bench and watching a guy play, and then all of a sudden you get put in there and you're ready, as opposed to getting rushed in and we don't like you, so now we're done with you. Now you're sitting there developing and you're playing with the second string guys. You get some throws at the end of practice occasionally. You get in during a couple of blowouts, and then all of a sudden, or an injury happens. Now you're ready, and now we're surprised. We actually let the player become who, because everyone leaves early anyway. Now you actually get to see the player that they can become. And I think it worked in his favor, and hopefully that's an example moving forward where we don't reach and make everyone a top 10 pick. I mean, they're already saying next year everybody's going top 10, but hopefully it works that way. Just value talent the way it's supposed to be valued.
Nah, for sure. And I think the other thing is people keep doing this thing where we were talking about the folks that were in like more NFL type offenses or whatever, and how it benefits them. Keep in mind, you got 3 of them dudes on this list. The 3 of those dudes on that list had good quarterback ratings their rookie year. It's not a knock on the other 3 at all. Just simply saying, people have a propensity to look at in college and look at the numbers and be like, hey, so-and-so's throwing the ball all around the yard, so, it's definitely going to translate to the next level. Oh, so-and-so plays in a run-first offense. Meanwhile, so-and-so who played a run-first offense probably had to, read defenses a little bit better, put the run game in better situations, understand, how to read the weight of a box, call their protections. Progressions might be full field rather than half field, because when they do pass, it's a little bit different if, you're primarily a running team. There's going to be certain personnel groupings you're used to, you live in. Those situations are much, much different to I'm in the gun and I get to just let this thing go wherever I want it to go, whenever I want it to. Then, we keep getting here. Oh, well, my eval wasn't wrong. So something's wrong somewhere else. Nah, dude, like and that's not an indictment on the kid. Look at the system they played in, and stop looking at so and so threw X amount, X amount of time, so that makes him a better passer, or is it just so and so got to throw more than so and so, and it stops right there. What if the person who threw more wasn't actually a better passer? They just went to a place where they were allowed to throw more.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel like just looking at these six, we're going into year two. Not an indictment on anybody. You're seeing some of the guys who spent more time in the spread and in the gun, that transition's a little bit slower. The guys where y'all were laughing at in their run first offenses and nothing's too flashy and all that stuff, they're kind of more comfortable dealing with these complex NFL defenses because you were already used to. Again, I don't think people understand how hard it is. You're turning your back to a defense, and when you turn around, that thing is not what you thought it was. So you're reading the thing twice, maybe three times in the same play. And if you're comfortable doing that, you're going to be comfortable with some of the other crap that comes with just being a rookie. And I think it honestly mentally helps you see this stuff quicker.
Right. And the NFL is not a pre-snap league. I think college, especially with the 3-4 wide sets, the corners playing 10 yards off, they're told to just take it,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's helps to have a 75% completion rate because you're taking the ball and throwing it right to someone. You're throwing bubbles, you're throwing screens and then faking the screens. Like the offense can really simplify. And the talent disparity is a lot bigger. Like we watched, no disrespect, we watched Clemson where they were able to throw back shoulders on a consistent basis. Where you have the bigger receiver and you have the quarterback with the arm and just certain things. The matchups where they're actually facing equal talent happen how many times a year? And again, when you're playing certain offenses where, again, the two guys I think that came to my mind are Stanford and what's that school called? North Dakota State. You're getting a more condensed offense, and it's not as fun. And the evaluation is a little more difficult, to be honest with you. You're watching a run offense, and you're watching the team actually use the fullback and use the second tight end, third tight end. The receivers look like tight ends. It's a lot more on the quarterback. When you don't see the 70-yard deep ball. You don't see again, sometimes you watch the screen and a certain throw and you see the receiver do something exciting. And that goes back to, in our mind, it's that quarterback made a great play, but it all goes together, and now your windows are a little tighter because your receivers aren't winning the same way. Now you might get more tip balls or you get different things because you don't have the athletes, and I think you don't realize Trey Lance throwing the ball to Brandon Ayuk going to get the ball. Well, it's different than some of the other guys. And he had the kid Watson, but it's a different type of players. Or the catches George Kittle can make. I've seen one of the catches Kittle made last year on one of his throws. One-hand catch. It's like he's never had that. When you had to put the ball in the guy's pocket, and now it's, be a little in the area because you got guys who can make the play, or you got a guy who can really win a route, who can, Debo puts the move on, he put the ball in space. Is different than, the kid with the neck roll going out for a pass that you've been throwing to. I think that's just, it works in their favor, but it might have hurt them in their draft status. But in the pros, it's that's the way the game works. It's an adjustment.
Yeah, same thing with Davis Mills at Stanford. You didn't have anybody Brandon Cooks fast on your team. You just didn't. So even when you threw deep, you kind of almost had to be literally freaking surgical with how you dropped that thing because you weren't throwing anybody. There's college fast and then there's, the speedsters in the NFL. That's weaponized fast. Brandon Cooks is one of those dudes. He was letting that thing go to Cooks. When he figured out, I can just let this, I don't need to do too much work for you. If it's there, put this thing up. Oh, okay. And you saw him kind of take off, like you said, get comfortable. And that's just the opposite way to attack this thing. And it's not saying those two are better than anybody else in the class, just pointing out how we got here to this point where some of them had a little bit better success dealing, everyone was a rookie, right? And dealing with some of the stuff because of the offense, their background, offenses that they played in. And I think some people are looking at it the other way, kind of backwards, or just not taking the time to look at it from the other end of the spectrum. And this happens far too often. We'll see. We'll see how everything goes. But again, it should be a fun year too for these guys. But again, and this is the perfect thing. You had 6 of them, right? You got 3 with very good ratings and 3 with, and the rating's not the end all be all. Like no one's rating was gonna be great. Even some of the ones with good ratings, like your completion percentage was bad. Like Trey's completion percentage was 57.7. That is not good. You would like that number to be higher. However, you have things that offset it. They 8.5 yards per completion. Some other folks would love that in their offense. I'm sure the Jets would love if Zach was hitting 7-8 yards per, because he can. Same thing with Trevor. But I'm sure they're also happy with the fact that they got to see what they got to see. But Trevor's getting a second regime already. With Zach, it's kind of like fine tuning. Let's get more things around you. And there's so many different places they can pull from of how to make things easier for you. I think with Mills, having Pep Hamilton in that building. Folks, Pep Hamilton is a QB whisperer and is not getting the respect that he deserves. Every time he's around a young quarterback, oh, look, they just hit the ground running. I wonder how that continues to happen. And then, talk about McCorkle. Hit the ground running, man, just being on time. And again, Trevor, Zach, and Justin should be just fine. They are all very talented individuals. It's just 3 of them, 3 of them kind of, for the most part, I'm looking at 3 of them heading into a bit of a better situation in the year 2. Based off they're all they all have to build. They're all starting from different places going into year 2. I think is the best way to say it. And that'd be the fun thing, because at the end of the day, if nobody's like super special at this group and you just get 5 good starters, it's on, that means every team hit, or 6 good starters. I'm sorry, every team hit, and you just got to build the roster up around them. If that's what it is, worst case scenario, you're good. That means you're not going to be one of these teams back in, they had the trade, when you're going in the draft this year and keeping a mind on next year to make sure you got enough ammo in case you need to move up to go get a guy. You know what I'm saying? Because you're hedging your bets. Like, for the most part, these 6 teams, like good, bad, and indifferent, where you are under center for the next 3 years. There's something positive there to be said for all 6 of them. And again, they're only going into year 2. And, I think this is a good exercise just to keep checking in on year to year. I expect everybody's numbers to jump this year. Honestly, I expect all of them to take a step forward. It's just a matter of how many of them, take a step forward, who starts running forward, or who takes a leap forward. But I expect all of them to get better, because all them dudes are dumb talented, man. Like every single one of them. And I think they all ended up getting drafted where they should have got drafted for the most part. I don't think, I think every team got good value. I think that's the best way I can say. It's not like, this past year where everyone was wondering where everyone was going to go. Thought we were going to get 6 quarterbacks in the first round, and we got 1. And it's not indicting anybody's talent. Just, again, like, if this is what came out last year, it's going to have some, that's going to factor into the following year.
Right. You saw all 6 of those guys would have been number 1. Yeah. And again, there was no big players in the draft period, so all 6 of these guys would have could have won last year.
All 6 of them would have had an argument for QB1. Would have definitely had an argument for QB1 in this class, and and a couple of them might have went 1 overall, like if they were in this class. Right. There's a couple of them, you mentioned the first 4 that we talked about. Tools wise, let any of them been in this class. Like the tools and the size they have, yeah, man. We wouldn't even like Trayvon Walker probably still would have went top 5, but probably wouldn't have went 1. You had a quarterback messing up that edge rusher thing at the top of the draft. But I thought it was a good exercise. And again, we'll get into bringing out these draft classes slowly but surely as time goes on, because we got time, and it's going to be a long off season. But thank you guys for chilling with us today. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Again, more news from the association. We'll see whatever we find NFL-wise. Don't forget, when you guys tune in, jump in the comment section. Let us know what you guys want to talk about. Let us hear from you guys. Till tomorrow morning.